2 hours of sleep and 8 hours of sleep. Both claim they can get you through the day. Both promise some version of functionality, and we all know which one actually delivers. So, how did the 8-hour sleeper succeed where the 2-hour grinder failed? To understand why some sleep schedules destroy you while others optimize you, we need to understand something about biological warfare. And the best way to see this is through the architecture of human recovery itself. Picture this: it's 4 a.m., you're in your room, laptop glowing like a radioactive altar, cortisol pumping through your veins like rocket fuel. You've slept one, maybe 2 hours, and somehow you feel invincible. Your prefrontal cortex is shutting down like a dying engine, but your fight or flight system is overcompensating so hard it deserves a medal. You're jittery but focused, emotional but decisive. Is it a meltdown? Is it productivity? No one knows. But here's the twist. Your brain just got the equivalent of a single French fry, and you're calling it a meal. Big deal, right? Look, in that brief window, you entered a sliver of light sleep, enough to trick your neural circuits into thinking they survived the night. But skip ahead a few months of this routine and the body starts keeping score. Impaired glucose metabolism, weakened immune function, cognitive decline stacking up like unpaid debts. You're not burning the candle at both ends, you're microwaving the wax. Studies show chronic sleep deprivation in this range correlates with increased all-cause mortality. Translation: your mitochondria are filing for bankruptcy. Fast forward to the 2 to 4 hour crew. Welcome to functional adult cosplay. You technically logged sleep, so your brain marks it as a win, but biologically you're still 2 cycles away from not hallucinating during a Zoom call. Here's where it gets interesting. Your cortisol and norepinephrine levels spike through the roof, giving you laser focus for exactly 2 hours before you start vibrating into another dimension. Sleep researchers call this sleep restriction, which is just biohacker slang for slow-motion brain rot. But here's the wild part. Creativity sometimes spikes. Yeah, sleep-deprived brains become weirdly good at divergent thinking. You might forget your passwords and cry during cereal commercials, but you also just wrote a haiku about mortality in a Slack message. A 2017 University of Pennsylvania study found people getting 4 hours of sleep for 2 nights experienced brain performance drops equivalent to legal intoxication, except no one's breathalyzing your frontal lobe before you operate a forklift. And yet, historically, elite military units trained on partial sleep to test resilience. Push yourself to the edge just to see if you snap or build a podcast about discipline. Spoiler, most of us snap. Now we hit the 4 to 6 hour zone, the respectable dysfunction. This is where people stop staging interventions and start calling you a hard worker while you age at double speed. You get just enough rest to walk around pretending you're fully formed. Maybe you hit some REM sleep, maybe a shallow dip into deep recovery if the universe feels generous. The result: cognitive function hovering somewhere between a tired raccoon and a tax auditor. Politicians, tech bros, CEOs who microdose melatonin and call it a nighttime biohack, they all live here. Cold showers, standing desks, pretending your eye bags are a vibe. But the science doesn't care about your aesthetic. Harvard Medical School research shows chronic sleep in this range results in impaired attention, slower reaction times, and increased risk of obesity, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. You're basically a walking case study for what not to do if you enjoy brain cells. Still, you feel functional. You work out, drink green smoothies, do Duolingo before 8 a.m., never mind that your hippocampus is crying and your hormones are playing musical chairs. Your body compensates through stress pathways, keeping you upright with a delicious cocktail of cortisol and self-denial. Sleep researchers call this accumulated sleep debt, but the more technical term is slow-motion collapse. But sleep's real ambitions peak in the 6 to 8 hour range. If you're into breakdowns like this, hit subscribe. Welcome to Mindex. This is the Goldilocks zone where productivity meets sanity and your brain stops buffering at 240p. Here's what actually happens. You get full cycles of REM and deep sleep, which means your brain finally has time to take out the trash, vacuum the trauma, and file those memories where they belong. According to the National Sleep Foundation, people who consistently sleep 6 to 8 hours enjoy better cardiovascular health, improved glucose regulation, stronger immune function, and reduced all-cause mortality. Translation: you're not just surviving, you're giving your mitochondria a standing ovation. Mentally, you're sharper, more creative, less likely to cry in a Trader Joe's parking lot. Your prefrontal cortex gets the downtime it needs to function like a rational adult instead of a medieval dungeon gremlin. And here's the real flex: you age slower. A UCLA study found inefficient sleep accelerates biological aging, while a full night's rest helps repair DNA and preserve telomere length. You're not just sleeping, you're anti-aging. If you think about it, 6 to 8 hours is the ultimate biological rebellion. You can't brag about it. You can't tell people I slept 7 hours and expect applause. That's why hustle culture hates this range. It's too sane to be edgy, too healthy to sell supplements. But your brain, heart, and hormonal system, they're all silently throwing you a parade. Then we enter the 8 to 10 hour territory. Rare, mythical creatures spotted only on Sundays post-breakup, or when your body finally revolts after 3 weeks of pretending you're okay. This is recovery mode unlocked. Maximum tissue repair, elevated growth hormone release, cognitive superpowers that make you feel like you could solve a Rubik's Cube and your childhood trauma simultaneously. Athletes live here. A Stanford study on basketball players showed that increasing sleep to around 10 hours improved sprint time, accuracy, and reaction time. Sleep more, shoot better, scientifically proven. Emotionally, you're a Zen god. Lower cortisol, better mood, and people who sleep this much show reduced amygdala reactivity, meaning you're less likely to snap when Starbucks runs out of oat milk. Your hippocampus is thriving. You remember names, faces, passwords, even where you parked, all because you slept like a log instead of doom scrolling until 2 a.m. But plot twist. The world judges you. Sleep this long and suddenly you're lazy, unmotivated, or worse, European. Society wasn't built for people who treat their REM cycles like royalty. You'll get passive-aggressive texts at noon that say, still sleeping, as if you committed a war crime. And yeah, there's a threshold. Studies show chronic oversleeping beyond 9 to 10 hours without medical cause correlates with higher inflammation, depression, and metabolic dysfunction. So if you're snoozing this long every day and still tired, your mitochondria might be screaming into the void. But if it's occasional and intentional, you're not lazy, you're biologically optimized. In fact, you're probably healing from burnout your 6-hour friend hasn't even admitted they have. Finally, the 10 to 12-hour club, coma cosplay. If you've ever blacked out for half a day, woke up disoriented, and had to check the calendar to figure out what year it is, congrats, you're deep hibernation elite. This is full-body reboot mode. Immune system fortified like a medieval castle, neuroplasticity popping off, your brain literally decluttering your mental desktop and defragging your emotional hard drive. Some studies suggest longer sleep, when not caused by underlying conditions, actually benefits young adults, adolescents, or people doing hard physical recovery, elite athletes, shift workers, or someone who just binge-watched their own heartbreak. Your dream cycles, layered. You're deep into stage 17 by now, having full cinematic dreams scored by Hans Zimmer. Your body soaks in restorative effects like a hot spring in Iceland. But and this is critical, research shows too much sleep links to increased inflammation, impaired glucose metabolism, and higher risks of depression and cardiovascular issues, especially if it's habitual and unintentional. If you're sleeping 12 hours nightly while waking up feeling like you were hit by a spiritual dump truck, it's not your soul ascending. It could be something medical. Chronic oversleeping often ties to underlying issues like sleep apnea, depression, or thyroid problems. But if you're doing it occasionally after travel, stress, or just surviving capitalism, you're not broken. You're healing. And frankly, the world could use more people who are well-rested and emotionally stable, so enjoy your hibernation. But if you find yourself making your bed just to crawl back into it daily, you might need more than sleep. You might need a life reset, or at least a blood test. Here's the thing about sleep schedules. The dude sleeping 2 hours thinks he's winning. The 8-hour sleeper knows better. One's running on fumes and cortisol, the other's running on biological optimization. And we all know who actually survives the long game. The system doesn't care about your hustle. It cares about recovery, repair, and whether your mitochondria are getting the respect they deserve. Sleep doesn't negotiate. It doesn't compromise. It just wins.